What if the most powerful people in your world were also the most evil? In One Piece, no group better embodies corruption, arrogance, and cruelty than the celestial dragons. These so-called gods sit atop the world, immune to consequences, living in unimaginable luxury while treating everyone else as nothing more than disposable toys. They're not just vile, they're a symbol of everything rotten in society: slavery, oppression, and class hatred rolled into one. And in a medium full of despots and monsters, the celestial dragons just might be the most vile race in all of anime. In this video, we'll dive deep into what makes them so detestable, their origin, their crimes, the devastation they've caused, and why they're so important to the world order created. To understand why the celestial dragons hold such unchecked power, we need to go back to the very foundation of the One Piece world. Over 800 years ago, 20 kings from across the world came together to create the world government. These 20 kingdoms united their military and political might to overthrow the ancient kingdom during the Void Century, and in doing so, they secured total dominance over the seas. But the kings didn't stop there. Once their power was consolidated, they abandoned their own lands and moved their families to Merijua, a city high above the Red Line. There, they crowned themselves the Celestial Dragons, proclaiming themselves the rightful rulers of the entire world. From the very beginning, their ideology was built on superiority. They saw themselves as gods, walking amongst mortals, their bloodline proof of divine favor. Even the descendants of the one king who chose not to join them, the Nefertari family, were looked down on as traitors. What's frightening is that their authority is absolute. The world government, the marines, and even the admirals exist to protect their interests. They don't need to follow the law, because in their eyes, they are the law. They can shoot an innocent person dead on the streets without consequences, and the marines will punish anyone who retaliates. Their influence stretches to every corner of the seas, corrupting politics, trade, and justice itself. You see this kind of power on full display at Sabaody, where pirates and civilians alike grovel before them. The fear is real, because harming a celestial dragon means summoning an admiral to destroy you and everything you stand for. That's the depth of their influence and the weight of their tyranny. Their control is not just physical, but psychological, keeping the world beneath them in chains of fear. It's one thing to hold power, it's another to wield it in such careless disregard for life. The celestial dragons are not merely corrupt, they revel in their own cruelty. To them, the world is nothing but a playground where everyone else exists to serve, amuse, and suffer for their whims. Nowhere is this more evident than in their treatment of slaves. In Merijua and even in Sabaody, they keep entire families shackled in chains. Humans, giants, fishmen, even children. Their sense of entitlement is horrifying. At Sabaody, Charlos casually shoots a man just for not bowing low enough, then tries to buy Kemi, a fishman, without hesitation. Later he shoots Hashan simply for trying to protect her, and laughs as the crowd recoils in fear. It's a pattern that repeats: shoot innocents, destroying lives, all without the slightest hint of remorse. Even their personal habits are vile. They wear oxygen-filled helmets to avoid breathing the same air as commoners, a grotesque symbol of how little they value the people beneath them. To them, the suffering of others is entertainment, and their own comfort is all that matters. What makes their cruelty worse is the system that enables it. Marines and even admirals enforce their will, turning a blind eye to their atrocities because the alternative, challenging them, risks bringing the wrath of the world government down. Their humanity is not just individual, but institutional. It seeps into the culture of the world, normalizing slavery, discrimination, and abuse. And that's why their presence stings so deeply, because it reminds us of the darkest chapters of our own history. In One Piece, the celestial dragons aren't just villains. They are a condemnation of unchecked privilege and endowment of everything that's wrong with power. The celestial dragons aren't just villains for the sake of the story. They are one of the most meaningful pieces of social commentary in One Piece. Oda designed them to reflect the dangers of unchecked privilege, class division, and systematic oppression. They are more than just characters. They are a critique of real-world injustices. At their core, the celestial dragons symbolize the corrosive effects of inherited power. They live off the blood and sweat of the people below, convinced their lineage makes them inherently better. Their existence mirrors historical systems of colonialism where a privileged few exploited entire nations while calling themselves civilized. The fishermen's oppression and enslaved echo real-world racism and discrimination, with the celestial dragons serving as the architects of that hatred. Bartholomew Kuma's tragedy is one of the most powerful examples of what they represent. Once a proud king and revolutionary, Kuma was stripped of his humanity piece by piece until he became nothing but a mindless slave at their beck and call. His fate shows how celestial dragons don't just dominate politically, they destroy lives and identities to maintain their illusion of control. Even Doflamingo, who grew up among them, calls them monsters, and his own cruelty as a pirate is framed as a reflection of the system that created him. If someone as ruthless as Doflamingo sees them as vile, it speaks volumes about their nature. What makes them so effective as antagonists is how real they feel. They embody the worst aspects of human society: greed, prejudice, and the belief that some lives are worth more than others. The satisfaction audiences feel when Luffy punches Charlos comes from a deep, almost primal anger at injustice, the kind of anger we all feel watching real-world systems fail the oppressed. In short, the celestial dragons are more than just a narrative device. They are a mirror held up to humanity, daring us to confront the darkness within ourselves. For all their power and cruelty, the celestial dragons have not gone unchallenged. Throughout One Piece, we see sparks of resistance, moments where the oppressed push back, even knowing the odds are stacked against them. And those moments are some of the most satisfying in the series. The most iconic comes at Sabaody, when Luffy punches St. Carlos. In that instant, the weight of hundreds of chapters of injustice explode into a single charismatic moment. The act is more than rebellion. It's a statement that no one, no matter how divine they claim to be, is above consequences. But Luffy is far from the first to fight back. Decades earlier, Fisherman Tiger, a fisherman enslaved by the celestial dragons, escaped from Merijua and climbed the Red Line barehanded. His act of defiance inspired the Sun Pirates and ignited hope amongst the oppressed. Even though it ultimately cost him his life, his story shows that resistance is possible but always comes at a heavy price. Even within the celestial dragon's own ranks, we see the crack. Doflamingo, himself a former celestial dragon, became one of their harshest critics, exposing their hypocrisy even as he perpetuates their cruelty in his own way. And Kuma's quiet sacrifice, submitting to the pacifista program to protect the revolutionary army's secrets, is another form of resistance, even if it cost him his own freedom. These stories remind us that justice is not given, it's fought for. And in the world of One Piece, where systems of oppression seem unsurmountable, even a single act of defiance like Luffy's punch can inspire another to stand tall. In conclusion, the celestial dragons are more than just villains in a story. They are the embodiment of everything we despise about unchecked power, privilege, and cruelty. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in, where systems of oppression still exist and those at the top often escape accountability. In One Piece, their presence gives weight to the struggles of the oppressed, and their actions make every act of resistance feel all the more meaningful. When Luffy threw that punch, it wasn't just a moment of rebellion in the manga or anime. It was a moment that resonated with readers everywhere who've ever felt powerless against injustice. The celestial dragons remind us why stories like One Piece matter. They hold up a mirror to humanity, asking us to choose. Do we bow to injustice or do we stand up and fight? So what do you think? Are the celestial dragons the most vile race in all of anime, or are there other groups you think are worse? Let us know in the comment section below.